John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Hey guys, I'm Hodge, 7 of Truth and Infinite Potential Healing, and if this is new to you and me, I'm a new teacher to you. I've been owning my power and calling myself Crocodile Star Lord Wolverine, Aladdin Dundee, and as I said in a couple releases back, that's me owning my power in my body and structuring the water in my amazing skin suit technology, the DNA human body that's a emanation of Earth Mother and stuff, because I know and own how incredible it is as a soul to be in partnership with my body and being here now, especially with what's been going on in the world. Right now I'm doing the recording a bit early before I create the video, so I might have included a clip or two at the start, depending on copyright sort of stuff, just to plant a few seeds with people and stuff. One of the clips and one of the shows from the 90s that I've been thinking about is a series called Babylon 5, and there was a huge amount of teaching in there, particularly about the two main species, the Vorlons and the Shadows. It was basically light and dark at you imagine a multi-dimensional level, light and dark, which I sort of did the Incarnation War series up to part 5 so far, prior to the recording I did with Angela Miller, which was really awesome. And that TV show, if you haven't seen it, it was shot in the 90s, so quite early in the 90s, so the graphics are quite dated, but as far as the philosophy and the interaction with species and stuff, and then there's these two sides, light and dark, and then they hook species into either side, and then humans were in the middle. Alright, so what it came out in that series is that the shadows were this evil species that did a lot of negative stuff, and then the Vorlons, they actually looked like angels, and they were doing their own thing to get other species involved with them. And long story short, they were working on a different scale of time, and they would go through these cycles of destruction, regeneration, rehooking species in, going through their cycle, and then basically they got kicked out of the galaxy, alright, and told basically to F off and leave it for the humans and stuff, alright. So it's a series I highly recommend for many things. I might try and include a few clips in certain things from here on. There was one really cool clip that I just went and looked at to see what was on YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah, so if I've included that, that's awesome. If I haven't, then there might be issues and stuff, but I do everything of fair use, sort of for educational purposes. So my idea of including clips like that is to plant seeds of wanting to go revisit stuff, because the consciousness Tetris, if you know what I mean, if you've listened all the way through most of my videos, when I've done these video logs sort of thing, I include that consciousness Tetris at the end. Yeah, so that's a bit of an intro. I've had a bit of a break and stuff, and I'll talk at the end what's been going on. I want to give the teaching up front, and then I'll talk about other stuff. What I was brewing and thinking about was wanting to do another Infinite Potential Healing release, and so this is part 3. And what I was thinking of doing was talking about some of my experiences going back even to 2010, okay? Just so you can discern me more and what I've been through and stuff, because what I feel is a lot of people, they don't have the observational skills of what they're actually been involved in, and they might have, you guys here, you know, if you watch the Incarnation War series, and I'll just show you the image related to that, the main one. So if I just show you the image, so the metaphor is we've gone through a lot of shit to get through to this time here, right? And Galactic Special Forces Part 2 and 3 exact, the recordings and stuff, and there was another recording that I haven't found and I may not found related to the Bank of England. So part 2 was about the Vatican, and part 3 was about a species that was lost. So we're all, I'm not going to assume this about anyone, but not many people are into my stuff or operating at this level and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm sort of suggesting to all you galactic shiny diamonds, like last mimsy Frodos of the universe, to be here now. Yeah, that's who we are, alright? And it's time to own it. And things are getting quite epic here on Earth because there's this effort to absolutely eliminate a lot of people, alright? Why? Because the dam is broken and the control isn't there, so they might as well fuck it up for everyone, alright? Because my attitude, and this is what I said, I feel there was a metaphor of sort of something Andrew said, and it might be quite hidden in that he talked about the Arcturians, and what they would do is they'd go out and discover all the ends of the universe, alright? And what would happen is when they got right to the end of thinking they knew everything, the universe would expand and play a great trick on them. So my attitude is, and that's a separate thing from what I felt, because I think I said it in Galactic Incarnation War Part 4, I felt that Earth is like this 3D sort of sultana that's dried out and been sucked of all the energy and stuff. And what the potential is as we go into this new energy, all of our healing abilities, all the talents and all that that are dormant are going to have a huge potential of just manifesting. That is, if we do the healing to get out the way, and we own the responsibility of have awareness, alright, and the talents and stuff. And the metaphor of what I felt with Earth, and this is really cool, I felt, oh wow, there's this whole thing that we're at the limit, we're at the end of what she can handle and stuff, and all that's going to happen is when we get to the limit, we get to the maximum threshold and stuff, I feel Earth will expand, alright? So controllers don't like losing control when there's a reset of the board, so to speak, alright? So that's the Vorlon light sort of dark going on, and we're in the middle, alright? So I will talk more about other stuff because Angela and I, we caught up on the 6th of November, which was early a week ago now, like just after that public recording from October 26th that I released 2 weekends ago. And we followed up because it shook out a lot of stuff, and I did healing on her and she helped me, and I've shared the recording of that to some of the hardcore clients of mine that have invested quite a bit in me, because I sort of like feed them sort of stuff and give them updated revocation and all that sort of stuff. So that you guys, I thank you for valuing me and stuff. So yeah, I'll talk a bit about that after. But one of the cool things I did when doing my pranic healing on Angela was via her I healed Earth itself. I healed the whole planet, and she can dialogue with Earth Mother and stuff, and it was a bit of a joke. Like Earth Mother was very grateful for my healing, and she was saying, "Yeah, I'll keep you," sort of thing. So what I'm sort of doing, and I'm going to dedicate part of my healing to, is actually placed on the Earth where perhaps a lot of bad and dark there, and I'll just give them a lot of pranic universal life force and clear the shit out of them and that region of Earth. So we'll see what happens. I know they're going to love that. All right, so that's you know, you put the pressure on us and all that sort of stuff. Well, surprise. See what happens. All right, so I love the dark, and I've sort of said I appreciate their role, and I give them status for their motivation of the sleeping people and stuff. So I've done that Enjoy the Ride video a while back, and yeah, to try and ride over it and stuff. So I won't get into too much before I get into the teaching of the purpose of this video. And I'm wanting to introduce a hero of mine. The mosquitoes are out. And it's someone that you've probably never heard, but he came into my radar recently again. Say a lot of the stuff that I've actually gone back to the gone sort of back to the books of teachers and stuff, and I've introduced people like Danny Brinkley and Dolores Cannon recently because they're just interesting people, and a lot of people don't have the connector abilities to link up particular teachings and stuff and people, and it's an interesting random thing to reintroduce sort of teachers and potentials that are there. And I had a really interesting synchronicity this week because this particular teacher, he was really massive in creating stuff, an inventor, and that his name is Dr. Robert Beck, or Bob Beck. And what I might do is I might have added a bit of a 10 or minute intro into the start of this video, or what I might do is actually just have a bit of a chat about him and introduce two components from different interviews and stuff. One is about 10 minutes and another is about 20 minutes. But yeah, this release, which will be Infinite Potential Healing Part 3, will be about concepts that he taught to me when I discovered him 2010 or so. So he was a great teacher of mine and the concepts are defeat the healer and healer frequency emanation, because we are sacred. Our bodies, an emanation of Earth that comes from Earth is sacred because Earth is a sacred planet. If you haven't realized that yet, then because the world and the narrative and all that has like smashed it out of us, it doesn't matter. All right, it is the case. So that's why I say we're all galactic special forces if we're here. All right, we've gone through all that shit to be here. Those guys out there, they're not here. All right, so we're number one, and it was fun as I mentioned, we had that conversation. I had that conversation with Angela, and the light were pissed off with what we said, and the dark were pissed off, and the 15 and all that, and got so much delegaff what they think. Like, does it look like I give a fuck? All right, because and Hollow Earth and all that. She got me to chant, which she I don't do that much and stuff, and yeah, we put them all. We sort of put them all in their place, all right, because everyone's at this stalemate, and we're the Frodos of the universe. We're the ones that can carry all the weight of the freaking universe and put up with all their crap and all their influence and stuff and all their divide. And if you remember in Lord of the Rings, when they're all brought together with the elf and they're all arguing, and Frodo's just like, fuck this shit, I'm just gonna take it home myself, alright? Unfortunately, that's the attitude we've sort of got to have now, because everyone else is flailing and getting spooked, and a lot of people that haven't had challenge and hardship are, for the first time, they're really being challenged and stuff. And you know, truth doesn't reveal itself when things are good. Truth reveals itself when things are bad. So that's why at the end of the Mozzies, Love My Blood, that's why at the end of Incarnation War Part 5 I include that clip about She'll Be Right, Mate, and the Aussie Anzac Spirit. So I highly recommend you go and be a bit thorough and listen to that. Alright, it's a separate teaching in itself, just what the linguistics of that guy said, and he's an interesting guy in himself. But yeah, so what I might do, Dr. Robert Beck, and to me he's one of the most, he's one of my heroes, alright? What he had to endure to bring the information that he brings and stuff was, you think it's tough now, you imagine what it was like in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when he was talking about this stuff. The first clip is from 96, 97, where he did a couple of lectures, and I'm just including the intro of him that one of the hosts gave to him, and then some of the concepts from those lectures, so you can actually see him. I think he's actually like a hybrid. He's an alien, alright? But he's so pure and so genuine and so committed. He was like an inventor, just a genius, like an inventor, a physicist, just fascinated about consciousness. What he did was help pioneer, you know, the alpha, delta, theta concepts. He invented technology to be able to brain train people back when there was nothing like that, alright? So, and then he found other technology to do remarkable things for the body, and I'm going to be very self-censored the way the world is now, and not talk about a lot, but yeah, so the first clip, which I'll show you now, it's really interesting. There's many teachings in there, and many things dropped that I've deliberately, subtly included as well, but what he talks about relative to defeat the healer, like, you think, I don't know what you've been like, but I found him 10 years ago. I used to sleep to the other lectures as well, because he's the 80s and his frequency are just so pure. It used to just be like a lullaby. Someone so committed to truth and authenticity and the betterment of the human man, and willing to go through all the stuff that he went through. It was just very, very nourishing and disarming to be able to hear that sort of stuff and feel it on the frequency level. And yeah, with the craziness that's gone on in the last few months, I wanted to revisit and get back into sort of I just wanted to explore those healing sort of sleeps and stuff, seeing what I got with my consciousness Tetris as it expanded. And yeah, so my instinct was first to include like a little bit of a clip of him and stuff in a Infinite Potential Part 3, talking about some of the cool things I'd done back in 2010, so you can discern me more. But what I've done in the time since I've done the last recording and stuff, and particularly this week, is that I thought, I'm going to go a bit serious and revisit his lectures that are out there and his recordings. And it's been really remarkable for what I found, because I've had a an awesome client that's had some issues, and the technology that he invented is still being manufactured, and these interviews and lectures were 20 and 30 and 40 years old now, and there's been an evolution, and it was ironic and synchronistic that this particular client could benefit from that, right? So it's like there's craziness and it's epic and stuff, but there's also these remarkable sort of synchronicities in it, and they sort of confirm that where we're at, and we're still, everything is where it's meant to be in sort of levels, even though there's massive influence and negative shit going on. To me, it's the passion and the human willpower to power on through it, and that's why I'm still alive and stuff and still here. So I'll introduce you to Dr. Robert Beck, one of my heroes, and I hope you enjoy this clip, and it's pretty cool, and I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy.
Get ready. Ready? Okay. Most men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most pick themselves up and continue on as if nothing had happened. So saith Mr. Winston Churchill. Occasionally we are blessed indeed to stumble over the truth. And this evening, I would like to introduce a very special gentleman. His name is Robert C. Beck, Bob Beck, B.E., D.S.C. And he's widely known for his instrumentation of altered states, the development of state-of-the-art medical electrostimulators, and his investigation of Tesla electromagnetics. Bob has been a consultant to the Sandia Corporation, the United States Navy Office of Surface Weaponry, on the subject of ELF detection, extremely low frequency detection, and was a senior staff scientist at the Earring Research Institute. He was the acting chief of radiological defense for the ODC, that's the Office of Civil Defense, in Los Angeles from 1958 to 1963. He has designed and built extremely sensitive magnometers for the Navy, and he's been a senior lecturer at the graduate school, the University of Southern California, my alma mater, Cardinal and Gold, go Trojans, rah. Bob is the founder of the Monitor Electronics Research Corporation and the Alpha Metrics Company, starting in 1969, the firm manufacturing an ethical EEG biofeedback instruments, electroencephalograph, a firm manufacturing, Bob owns the basic patents on low voltage electronic flash, the strobe lights from 1946 to 1955. Indeed, this is the gentleman that invented the electronics flash. I guess some of you might remember your grandfather. They have the old flash bulbs that they take pictures of, and then they take the bulb out and throw it away. Well, someone came up with a brilliant idea of inventing something that you can be used over and over again, a strobe. And the inventor of that is sitting to my left. Let's see. He's currently investigating psychophysiology and electromedical modalities. Bob has served on the board of directors for the United States Psychotronics Association for 7 years. He was their national president for 3 consecutive terms. He was the co-chairman of the Los Angeles USPA and has been a professional member of the Audio Engineering Society, the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, the Biological Photographers Association, and other associations. Bob received his undergraduate degree from the University of Southern California in 1948, his Doctor of Science from the Institute of Nuclear and Atomic Sciences, 1955. Bob resides in the Southern California area where he is active in energy, holistic medicine, and the effects of electromagnetic energies on health and consciousness. Dr. Beck is the recipient of 3 international awards for science and electromedicine, including the John Fetzer Foundation Pioneering Award for 1990. Well, we've had Westinghouse and Bell Tesla, Einstein, Schweitzer. I think we're in for a special treat this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert C. Bob Beck.
How do you do it, Mark? Hi, thanks for turning out on this miserable night. What I'm about to tell you tonight will sound like absolute bullshit. If somebody had told me 6 years ago that I would be lecturing to audiences around the world on a subject that is allegedly impossible, I would have said, no way am I going to risk my professional reputation on something as nebulous as this. My Indian name, incidentally, is Anthony Longcrow. When I asked the shaman, the medicine men I was working with at that time, why that? They said, well, Bob, your feet are on the ground and your head is in the stars. I said, I'll take it. So I guess you know that about 3 months ago, Explorer magazine published an article entitled Total Cancer Remissions Through Blood Electrification Combined with Silver Colloid. And this article, this 2 pages, is reprinted in its entirety in the paper that you should be taking home with you, because you might need this in your medicine cabinets when a lot of these man-made viruses are going to be unleashed by the New World Order. And I guess you have been privileged to hear Leonard Horowitz at this very fore. This man is doing magnificent work. His book, The Emerging Viruses, etc., I met him and had my first talk with him down at the National Health Federation this weekend. He's a gentleman and a scholar, and he is right. Social Security, let's take it easy, does not want you to live if you get to be 65. Now, I'm way past that. I don't act like it, but I am way past that. I'm in my 70s. The director of Social Security, I will not mention his name because he picks me up at the airport when I'm in Washington and drives me where I'm going. I've stayed in his house. Says, Bob, we want anyone who reaches 65 to be stored like cordwood in an old age home, given mind-controlled drugs like Valium, and let him die because Social Security is bankrupt now. It won't be bankrupt in 5 years. It is bankrupt now. And if you restore perfect health to these people with a device that will fit in your shirt pocket, the job market will not absorb the people getting out of college today. Even if McDonald's has a smart cash register, they can't add and subtract. They can hardly write a coherent paragraph. And you want to get these people with experience back in the job market? I said, hell yes. I was 65 nearly 10 years ago. Another problem. This steps on the toes of all the vested interests. They're expecting to make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of you. Health management organizations, insurance companies, hospitals. If you own a boat, that thing is written into the budget of a boat builder down there in San Pedro. He's going to see you come in there someday and spend a lot of money. But if you do this for yourself, it'll happen. You will get well. So I'm here to share this information with you. I have nothing for sale. There are people who are selling things. I'm not one of them. Part of that is I believe God's work should be given freely. I expect to get my reward somewhere else. I hope I don't come back to this planet of painful endeavor. I have a lot of theories about this, and also the FDA has come to my door with drawn guns at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have been beaten up by the people who are supporting the pharmaceutical houses and don't want a $1.32 cure for AIDS. I've had a lot of adventures, and I'm going to share one more with you, and then we're going to open it to questions. We have several major problems. What I have told you tonight is so incredible that it's basically unbelievable. 5 years ago, when I would try to tell people, look, why don't you just try this? I will give you the equipment. I've built up about a dozen of these. They're free. Take them. Try them. Oh, no. If they worked any good, our doctors, the priesthood would have told us about it. You think that they don't know that a patient cured is a customer lost? Let's say this again. A patient cured is a customer lost. And if you take back your power, the power over all diseases, and this tells you how, you're out of their grasp. You're out of the grasp of the computers, etc. The other problem is the death wish. Have I got any more time, or are we up? The second question, the problem, is the death wish. Now, these are not my numbers. They're the best psychologists, psychiatrists in America. They agree with Carl Simonton and Stephanie back years ago. You know who they were? They were the people who discovered the will to live was a tremendous factor in the cure of cancer. He was a radiologist in Fort Worth, Texas. He came out here, took some mind control classes, got into the metaphysics of disease, and totally changed his life. 85%, once more, of the population has a death wish. That death wish was planted in those people before they were 4.5 years old. They go something like this. My Sunday school teacher told me that man was originally walking with God in the Garden of Eden, and that Eve ate of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. It certainly wasn't an apple. And they were cast out of Eden, heaven. They had to work by the sweat of their brow, and they had to experience pain. And from then on, all mankind has been born under original sin. We have to suffer to get to heaven, where we get our just deserts. And the more we suffer, the more gold stars on our gluteus maximus. You've heard this version. It goes on and on and on. Remember the old Queen for a Day show? The woman who had 10 sick kids and a husband with a broken leg got the washing machine, and the woman who had 8 sick kids and her husband was still barely able to drag himself to work didn't get anything. We're rewarded. Sympathy, martyrdom, suffering. That gets the most grease. Those are the squeakiest wheels. In 1963, I published on a device called the Lakowski Multiple Wave Oscillator. Wayne knows about it. A lot of you in here have seen it. I think you took it home for a few weeks. That did work on some cancer patients. It absolutely did. One very famous cancer patient was running a TV show at that time. At midnight, he drove his car on the Normandy entrance the wrong way onto the Hollywood freeway, and he killed 4 other people when he was in a headlong collision with the car coming in the opposite direction. And that was on my conscience, because I did not realize that once we took his crutch away from Bill, he had to commit suicide. Here's a man, another man, hypothetical, who's lying in bed, getting the best of care. His insurance is running out. George, what could you be getting out of having cancer? No, nothing. Well, what about your next door neighbor who died 6 months? Oh my goodness, he was getting close to 60. He knew the company was going to retire him. And good grief, if he'd gone back to work, he'd have to compete with all those younger engineers who were just out of college. And Wow, his wife is bringing him chicken soup now. The kids are being polite. They're not screaming around him. In other words, these secondary gains create a phenomenon known as defeat the healer. We've had people on our IRB studies. I have a briefcase loaded with these things of cured cancer and AIDS patients who have dropped these machines in the washing machine accidentally out of their shirt pocket, who have let the dog chew them up, let the kids play with them. These are Freudian subjective ways of defeat the healer. We have had people deliberately not comply, which means you put this thing on your wrist after you have detoxed about 2 hours a day, 120 minutes a day, for about 3 weeks. You'll go back and surprise your doctor, but don't tell him what you've done because I want to stay out of jail. The FDA will never approve this device, but if there's anyone in here who wants to play with this and get immensely better, we have a couple of guidelines that our legal department wishes to share with you. Again, we're on the bottom of page 4 of your paper. We're reading from the Code of Federal Regulations, not city, not county, not state, federal regulations, Book 21, Article 807.65, Subparts D, Exemptions, Paragraph D and F. Now, I bet there are health professionals in here who've never come across this, so listen up. Excludes and exempts from regulation licensed practitioners, including physicians, dentists, and optometrists, who manufacture or otherwise alter devices solely for use in their practice. Now, if you take one wire off this printed circuit board and then solder it back, what have you done to it? You've altered it. But listen up here. This is getting old hat, but how many of you people have looked at a menu in the last month to see what your restaurant was serving? Come on, let's see it. I hereby pronounce you researchers. Listen up, researchers. We're now in paragraph F, Code of Federal Regulations 21-807.65. Excludes and exempts from FDA regulation persons who manufacture, prepare, propagate, compound, or process devices solely for use in research. Aren't you trying to see if this isn't going to grow hair back on your head? You're researchers. Research, teaching, or analysis, and do not introduce such devices into commercial distribution. And this and the freedom of speech, my First Amendment rights, are the only reasons that I'm able to stand in front of you today and give you this information that I feel must be the most valuable information you've heard in this lifetime. Because if you do want your family to live, if you do want your children, your friends to be healthy, not sickly and weak, do this. It does work. This is not my opinion.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. He's an awesome teacher that I feel great privilege in reintroducing or introducing to many of you that have never heard him. The way he came about for me, and I didn't include this in the start, was I'm hardcore in research and committed to my conscious expansion and stuff, conscious exploration. And what happened to me back when I started, it was like game on like Donkey Kong. I lost a lot of money in the financial crisis of 2008. I thought that the US would a bit like a gangrene and isolate itself from the rest of the world, when it was actually entangled, right? Like this globalization stuff, and it brought everyone else down. I got the concept totally wrong, and I lost money, so I felt pain. And so the motivation and the whole servant of truth thing is, I realized it's impossible to make good decisions based on a foundation of sand, a foundation of falsehood. So I wanted to know all the data I could get to make the best decisions I can. And when you really learn about the world, like there was parts in that reveal a lot of truth that maybe you didn't even comprehend, like stuff is planned, all right? And you know, the world can't afford to have everyone healthy and stuff like that, because the money aspect of our world doesn't fit the human potential and stuff. So a lot of stuff going on now is to get rid of that, if that makes sense. So so what I did, I exhausted people like Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Michael Desarian and David Icke and Ian Arcreen and stuff, and then I went back decades, and then I found people like Terence McKenna, and I went through Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell and all the people during that era and stuff, and found other teachers. And then once I exhausted all that, I went back decades, and the 70s and 80s, unfortunately, there's so many geniuses, like the level of quality of individual that came through that era, because there was no internet, no linking up. It was just you know, they had to be physicists and inventors of the stuff, and there were people like Marcel Vogel who invented LCD, like digital watches and stuff, like for IBM. He had the patent for that, and he got into crystal healing, and I might include clips and stuff about him in the future. There was another one, Andrei Paharic, who helped bring Uri Geller to the world and stuff, and he was involved with Richard Alan Miller. Richard Alan Miller was his student, and the cool thing about Uri Geller was, and you probably won't know this because it's in one of the lectures that was on Uri Geller's website with Andrei Paharic. And the reason why Uri Geller had to be destroyed in a public credibility sense was he was going around the world bending spoons and stuff, and what he was doing, this is the thing, he was activating tens of thousands around the world of what was possible, because he was breaking down the narrative of what was in the people's minds. So tens of thousands of people were learning how to bend spoons. So Uri Geller got threatened, if you don't destroy your credibility, we're going to kill you and stuff, right? And Uri was, there was a movie called The Last King of Scotland, right? And it was about Israelis being captured in one of the African countries and stuff, and what happened, Israel did a secret mission to go and get them by planes. But what's not talked about in that is, I know, for instance, Uri Geller went in and did remote influence of the radars of Egypt to allow the planes to get through Egypt airspace. So that's what psychics can do, all right? So I'm getting some rain possibly, and I might have to stop. But so yeah, Robert Beck was one of those people, and I found the radio show from the 80s, which is called Open Minds, by this guy by the name of Bill Jenkins. And he was like the Art Bell of the 80s in LA, and it was really, the next clip is about 20 minutes, and it comes from that radio show and that era, and I love it. It's on archive.org. Open Minds by Bill Jenkins is about, I don't know, 900 meg of heaps of interviews of the people during the 80s, of like Marcel Vogel and Andrei Paharic and others. There's a super psychic by the name of Peter Herkos that fell off a ladder from 30 feet high and banged his head, and he woke up as a super psychic. So yeah, I'm going to include that clip now. Alright, so in this clip, which is awesome, alright, what Robert Beck gets into, so that first clip was from 96, 97, this one's from 83, alright, and in one of the interviews on that Open Minds show is, he gets into techno-shamanism sort of stuff. I forget the name of it right now, but when he was inventing his, like, he goes through the process of the brainwave states and creating the technology for that. And what he would do, he would go around the world with lectures and training and stuff and get involved with the government and that. But one of the parallels he was doing was he was involved with super psychics and amazing mystics and stuff. And what he would use his technology, okay, to measure them doing healings or creating and stuff. And what he found is basically they all emanate the Schumann resonance, all right, from the hands and stuff like that, all right. So the healing state is basically the emanation of Earth heartbeat energy. All right, so Infinite Potential Healing Parts 1 and 2 is about what I discovered about the Earth and the sacred sites and how I created my modality and stuff. This one is to offer, when we're clear of all the debris, of all the unresolved stuff, our natural state is like the universal Davids, all right? This technology, it offers that emanation. So yeah, have a listen. It's really awesome. There's a lot of other stuff included. It was cut down as well of what I was thinking of doing, because what I was also thinking of doing is doing an extended one at the end for bonus material. So you can have a listen, all right? But enjoy the second part. It will greatly add to the first part as well. So enjoy.
Welcome to a Saturday night. It's Open Mind. I'm Bill Jenkins, delighted to have you along. And I want you to sit back and open your mind, because we're going to open it to new vistas of science. Things that you didn't know were going on all around you all the time. And we have a man who knows about that. Dr. Bob Beck is with us. So, open your mind, turn up the set, stay with. Dr. Robert Beck. Delighted to have you back with us here on KABC. Are you in tune?
Well, we're just about organized here.
What's going on in the world of the sciences that most people don't know about that are quite stimulating and interesting, and perhaps a little bit ominous?
Had a fascinating trip to Washington slightly less than a month ago, and met with some of the people who are a little bit more up to speed on these things than I am. And let's hope
in Washington? That's really interesting.
We brought a few toys down here and can simulate the sounds of consciousness that a person would hear if he were using biofeedback equipment.
Wait a minute. The sounds of consciousness.
Right. An amplified brainwave.
Let's talk about that for just a second. The sounds of consciousness. Kind of get that in context. You know, people are always saying we want to elevate your consciousness. I've never wanted to elevate the consciousness, because the consciousness is where all the bad stuff is going on. I'd rather elevate the unconscious thing where you actually are motivated. What is the sound of consciousness, and what is consciousness as you see it, Bob?
Dr. Joseph Kamiya, made an absolutely fascinating discovery in about 1965 when he was at the University of Chicago Sleep Lab. He found one of these serendipities. One of his first subjects had sort of a feedback loop to his unconscious and could actually control his brain waves, produce alpha. Mm-hmm. And by 1969, this new discovery, the voluntary control of what had been considered involuntary function, had become the darling of psychology, parapsychology,
etc., etc.
A lot of cults spun off. The Silva Mind Control Group that happened to be hypnotizing people and telling them, go to your levels. Uh-huh. But a lot of very good work was done, basically at the Langley Porter Neuropsychiatric Institute in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And it started an entire rash of biofeedback experimentation. Dr. Barbara Brown was working out here at the Veterans Administration, Sepulveda, and excellent work was being done at the Menninger Foundation, Doctors Elise and Elmer Green. And it emerged that a particular brainwave state, theta, happened to correlate with creativity, accessing cosmic consciousness, and the alpha state, which was considered to be 8 to 12 hertz, we'll hear some of this a little later, was identified as a meditative state. In fact, teams...
How are we going to hear an 8 hertz signal here?
Well, I just brought a little medicine bag with a couple of biofeedback instruments, and if we don't have any volunteers for heads, we'll put a signal generator into it, and we'll let the audience hear what their own brainwaves would sound like in altered states.
I don't... So, well, go ahead. You know, I wanted to stop you on that. The consciousness thing...
Well,
it's always curious to me.
I became so fascinated with EEG biofeedback in 1969 that I tried to get on board as a volunteer. There were only about 4 places in the country at that time that had the apparatus for volitional control of internal states. And that one of the encephalographic labs was at the Naval Electronics Lab in San Diego. Another one was Barbara Brown's group out at the VA Sepulveda. Then there was Langley Porter, but there was about a 3-year waiting list. So I built my own EEG system, and I was the most popular kid on the block. We were training all of our friends to control their brain waves, and we gave away about a dozen of these things for Christmas in 1969, and somebody said, "Why don't you sell them?" And that was the beginning of the Alphametrics Company. And since that time, we have built, many, many, many ethical biofeedback devices that have found their way into hospitals and schools and clinics and psychologists' offices. And that leads us to another fascinating story. I've always been interested in paranormal, people with remarkable talents, healers, dowsers, magicians, radionics operators, people who could actually cause consciousness alteration in others, who could apparently access information beyond their own, let's say, limited biosphere.
Well, you know, it's very easy for people just to kind of kiss that off as a lot of snake oil. But you and I both know that there are people that literally do it.
Right. So I was in a marvelous position to make actual brain wave chart recordings of people around the world at this time, from about early 1970 until 73. I found myself lecturing at SMU and Villanova and UCLA and USC on biofeedback. And when I was traveling, we could access people who had remarkable talents, because I had one foot on each banana peel. At that time, I was an establishment scientist. Today, I'm a kook. But my interest...
I don't think we can really call you a kook.
Well, I'm being humble.
Let's just call it avant-garde. Okay.
So what I did, when I was in Pennsylvania, for example, I'd find a Hexenmeister out in Lancaster County who would be working in his hat in the barn between midnight and dawn, making hexen sigils to bless the barns, and I'd wire up his brain and make recordings. I wired up charismatic faith healers. I wired up dowsers. I wired up a real, genuine Polynesian kahuna, Morna Simeona, bloodline Polynesian kahuna, not a pretender. And the amazing thing is that all of these people, when they were in their working state, their altered consciousness, were showing a particular signature, and that happened to be about 7.8 hertz, right at the alpha-beta border.
Right there at the Earth frequency, almost.
So we devised ways to induce this state. First, we used photic stimulus, flashing lights at this precise frequency, and we found that it would work for a few people. We tried audio stimulus, evoked potential click stimulus. I guess you've all heard Bob Monroe. And then we found that the magnetic fields, if they were produced in a particular way, and I brought one of the little boxes along tonight to show you what we were doing, was far more effective than any of these other things combined.
The magnetic fields did it.
The magnetic fields would reach all parts of the brain, both hemispheres, simultaneously. And the problem with trying to induce an artificial state, or rather a normal state with artificial means using light, was that the optic nerve transmitted the signal at different delay times. The left eye would, the signal would reach the right occipital cortex at, say, X amount of delay. The left eye at X plus or minus some little error signal.
That's part of the stereo vision that we have. It has to do it that way.
Yes, it is.
An alternating image technology.
And it's now known that a person with dyslexia reverses some characters, some figures, some letters, because the optical nerves just are not carrying the signal at the same time. So we got away from using the optic nerve, using the ears, went directly to the magnetic fields, and that was Pandora's box. All of a sudden, the government became interested in what I was doing, and I had many trips to Washington and did briefings. We did the classic experiment with Andrija Puharic in his Faraday cage, where we, I guess everyone who's listened to the show knows what happened. We put subjects inside of the Faraday cage.
Let me stop you for just a second, because you always get our attention whenever you say Washington is attentive, because we always know that usually means trouble. I'm Bill Jenkins. It's Open Mind, and with me tonight is Dr. Bob Beck, and we want to stretch your mind a bit. Well, go ahead.
Okay.
We took a little side trip there.
Now, one of the most amazing things that I had encountered in many, many years was that if these people who were showing about a 7.8 hertz signature in their brainwaves when they were in their working state, whether it was clairvoyance or healing or remote viewing or dowsing or operating a radionics magic black box, and by the way, we'll be showing slides of some of these next weekend at the Marriott. And what we'd planned on doing down there is presenting a very elaborate film strip showing the beginnings of the magic black box healing systems from the times of Albert Abrams through Ruth Drown and Galen Hieronymus and Peter Kelly, showing some of the electromagnetic tools that are being used now in the advanced thinking in the holistic health field. Unfortunately, a number of these devices are highly illegal.
In the United States.
In the United States. They're not in Great Britain. They're not illegal in other countries.
They're used over in the more healthy countries because they have them.
So all we're going to do is show slides of them, and if people want to build their own, we'll be able to provide them with absolutely authentic, absolutely accurate, totally debugged, working schematic diagrams so that anyone can build his own.
Build your own health.
Don't tell me about it, because I'm not supposed to talk about these, or at least...
But you're not selling it to them, so...
We're not selling them a thing. We're just giving them the information, saving them the time that they would take in researching this.
Okay. On some more on the health and healing, can your brain tuners be used for seasickness or space sickness, possibly by the astronauts?
We kind of have an agreement. We're not going to talk about those tonight because the FDA is a little bit on the warpath, but I'll answer that for you privately. If you'd like to call Paul at 393-9405 and give me your home number.
Okay.
We're kind of limiting this to stuff that is legal, like biofeedback, which are passive devices. And we're going to play some brainwave simulation here in a few minutes.
By legal, we mean that it's been approved by the FDA.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's illegal if they haven't approved it. It's just that they don't understand it yet.
But they're pretty touchy about some of these New Age things. They will cut into the profits, of course, of the medical trust, so... At least the biofeedback doesn't. It's grandfathered.
You apparently were able to measure some real psychic healer types, and you said they were 7.8 hertz resonating with the natural Earth's electrical field, and I'm wondering why, if we're all exposed to it, why we aren't all psychic, and why we could become benefited by having a brain tuner type thing or a similar device if we're not already sensitive to the natural background frequency.
That's a good question. If we're going to talk about electronic shamanism Saturday, April 6th. Psychotronics. I'm the national president of the U.S. Psychotronics Association. Psychotronics is sort of electronic shamanism. It requires an interaction of the consciousness of the operator with the electronic device. And this is the problem. A lot of operators cannot get into that state. But with biofeedback training, when they listen to a tape of a particular frequency or modulated frequency and tune their brain to it, they become much more accurate, and they can access these data more readily. It's almost as though the mind is a hologram. And unless you tune it to a precise frequency, you don't get a coherent readout. That would be a metaphor. And yes, that's a very good question. What we did find was that in many cases, when we measured the Earth ionosphere cavity resonance, the Schumann resonance, and put that on a totally isolated track of a twin-track recorder, and measured the subject's brainwave, there was a phase lock during a particular time. It doesn't require long, just a few seconds, and the person has accessed the information, and then it might take half an hour to do something with the data. And it suggested that man, as a biocosmic resonator, was actually tuning to this magnetic pace setter, this circadian rhythm. So naturally, we wound some big coils and put a lot of subjects in a magnetic field that was considerably stronger than the natural ambient. And we were able to produce altered states. And of course, you've heard Puharich talk about the experiments we did in 1977 and 78 back.
Right, yeah.
And I was the guy that set that thing up, and Puharich, of course, thought it was a good idea, and we tried to alert the community that something was going on here. And this is when I came out of the closet and became very public and got involved with some of the spook types and some of the good guys and some of the bad guys, but at least we're talking about it.
So in other words, even if you're naturally exposed, say, before the age of radio, all the natives in the jungle throughout the world, they weren't all psychic, and there was no modern electrical interference to interfere with their brain tuning. It's just that individuals are different, I guess, right?
I understand the Aborigines are far more psychic than we, and they use telepathy as one of their communication channels, and they're very close to nature. And primitive people apparently are far more sensitive to these minute signals, which incidentally are in the window range of about 125 microgauss, 125 millionths of, while the Earth's ambient is about 4/10 of a gauss presently, the thing that makes your Boy Scout compass point north. So these signals are just very minute, but there's a window effect. If they're too strong, they won't work. If they're too weak, they won't work. We started out by winding huge Helmholtz coils, about 9 feet in diameter, and putting one on the ceiling, one on the floor, and one on the north wall and south and east and west. Then we found that we did far better with a point source. It was as though the brain, as Tom Bearden puts so eloquently, is a scalar detector. And the left and the right hemisphere, being at slightly different spatial relationships, can detect a near field more easily than a far field. So if you're working with this, Craig, you're better off using a point source than a uniform field.
Hopefully then with some artificial gadgetry, then a lot more of us could develop those potentials then with a nearby little unit.
Yes, I think you can. If you followed the work done at Menninger Foundation, the Greens, they believe that the theta state is the access portal, the window to altered states of consciousness. They've written some excellent books on this subject, and we highly recommend their work.
Okay, fine. Any more throughout the show, I'll be listening out there, if you get more details on the regrowing of limbs or the diagnosing or beaming beneficial rays into the people to cure plaque or tumors, I'd be interested here.
Our absolute saint in this area, of course, is Dr. Robert O. Becker, who pioneered this, and as I mentioned earlier, his book is available now, and I bought mine at the Pt3 bookstore, and it's called The Body Electric.
Mm-hmm.
And you, of all people, should run, not walk, and pick up a copy of this. They had only a few of them last week.
Great. Well, I know children can regrow the fingertips if they don't sew it up. They just bandage it, and the fingertips will grow out by themselves, but presumably he did better than that electrically.
Oh, yes, he has, and he can't talk about it, of course, because he did use some human subjects, and that's illegal. You're supposed to do many years of rat studies, and then you get approval from the FDA, and then only then can you use human subjects. This is where I broke the law a lot back 10, 15 years ago, because I used human volunteer subjects for some of the brainwave control that we were doing. And later in the show, we have a little brainwave amplifier here and the signal generator, and we'll play over the air the modulated tone of the psychic state, the alpha state, the theta state, the delta state. And you'll notice that the alpha-theta border, this 7.83 hertz, is the thing that's been used since the beginning of time as the tremolo, the vibrato in music. It's a very soothing sound, and it does cause alteration of consciousness.
Well, it's a shame that they can slap the wrists of the guys that implant an artificial heart that's not approved in a guy, and they can split open a little baby like a watermelon and implant a baboon heart when they know it's just not going to work. They're just experimenting, and that's okay, but you can't have a little battery-operated radio device to
cure things. We're going for full FDA approval on the brain tuner, which is why we're keeping a very low profile on it. The company that makes them is doing all of the red tape work, Bechtech International, and we expect to have these things approved by the FDA in a few months, and so we're not doing anything to rock the boat in the meantime. The problem with that is once it is approved by the FDA, it's accessible only through a medical doctor on prescription, and undoubtedly the price will go up astronomically.
Well, you can always open a clinic in Tijuana. There's a lot of good groups appearing down there.
Good thinking, Craig.
It's not just Latro now. There's all kinds of vaccines and stuff they got down there. Good stuff.
I know. Cellular therapy and Geravitol.
There's been vaccines against cancer going back 100 years. That's documented in that Cancer Conspiracy little book by Pinnacle Books. And they've arrested them. And
there's some horror stories about cancer that one of these days we'll tell you. They go back to 1929.
I know. I followed that for many years, Craig, and I'm in total agreement. I believe people should be given back to themselves, not delivered into the hands of another vested interest. But how are we going to do that?
Well, we will try our best to see that comes to the surface.
Thank you for your time, Bill.
Thank you, Craig, for checking in. I'm Bill Jenkins. With me tonight is Dr. Robert Beck, and we're talking about some things that are on the borderlines of science, that it will be your future. And it would be well that you stay with us, and I hope you do.
That brainwave entrainment can be stimulated by light, epileptic flicker, photic stimulation. It can be stimulated by sound, click stimulus at certain frequencies, and it can definitely be triggered by magnetic fields. And this is the thing that we're worried about.
The digital square wave also, a broadcast digital square wave will, your skin picks that up actually. It's a good receiver of it, and it can start doing things.
The problem in our complex society is that the brain as a nonlinear mechanism mixes all of the heterodynes. If you have a squirrel cage blower in the air conditioner on the roof and it's rotating at a certain frequency and it's not degaussed, there's some residual magnetism in the blades, and you have a motor running in the Xerox machine and the washing machine and the elevator, the sum and difference of these frequencies, the harmonics of them, can sometimes fall in these windows. And we found this in a number of office buildings where people who are sensitive to this type of radiation, which happens to, the population is about 35% of the gross human population, these people will get nausea, have headaches, have very short attention spans, undergo depression, sort of pregnancy, whether they're men, women, or children, morning sickness. And we have developed magnetic detectors, which I'm sure you're aware of. You can build these quite inexpensively, that detect the H vector, the magnetic fields, that are causing some of the sickness, and we call it the new occultism, the hidden factors in health and disease. You can't smell them, you can't taste them, you can't see them, but with the proper electronic instrumentation, you can certainly detect them.
It's our own electronic and magnetic smog that's around us. And particularly in a city like Los Angeles, it is intense. That's really one of the reasons that you feel so good when you get up in the mountains. You know,
exactly.
It's not the vista, and it's not the clear air. You have cleared yourself of all of these other influences which are really affecting your body.
And you just don't realize it till you get away from it.
Yes, I've noticed that in Arizona and southern Utah, and I don't know why, but when I've gone on some trips there, it seems like there's something that just brings this feeling of clarity that I don't normally experience.
You're away from the smog. And we're talking about the electronic smog, not the smog we see and smell.
But it's actually, I see. Yeah, because in this L.A., for some reason, it just...
in a city. Any city.
Back about 12 years ago, we did some interesting experiments. We took one of our first rather primitive magnetometers that consisted of a huge coil of very fine copper wire and some extremely low-noise amplifiers around the various spots where people felt good and felt bad. And sure enough, we found that the standing waves of the Schumann resonances were predominant at places like American Indian magical burial grounds up in the Joshua National Monument area and Brew Joy.
Brew, yeah.
Right. Had me come up and we checked the Sky High Ranch area and we found that the vibes up there were just absolutely marvelous, so he used that.
Right at 7.83, right?
Right. And you can move a few hundred feet and be totally out of this, and the geophysicists know that it depends on the iron ore concentration in the soil and the standing waves and all of these variables, but you can detect this. You can actually measure it when you have the right equipment.
Can you build a transmitter that would transmit that around you?
Yes, and we've done that, and this little blue box right here, which we don't talk about too much, puts out the exact magnetic field that you need. This is the one we demonstrate in Washington. Whenever we have skeptics, at a conference a while back, we demonstrated that from the back of the room we could control the brain waves of the volunteers.
Just mellow them out right there on the spot.
Right. We'd have volunteers wire up on a Tektronic encephalograph and an oscilloscope, and we had a number of skeptics in the audience at many of these demonstrations. And I would turn this little box and double blind say, okay, now we're going to put out a X encephalographic signal and now a Y. And this has been thoroughly tested, thoroughly replicated. It's not snake oil anymore. It's scientifically validated.
It's a little tough for some of the bureaucrats to figure it out, but they will come along, we hope.
Well,
does that help you, Larry?
Yes, it does.
Right.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. I enjoy the show.
Thank you. Thank you for contributing to it. I'm Bill Jenkins. With me is Dr. Bob Beck. It's Open Mind.
So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. It's pretty epic. And I hope you enjoyed the frequency of the 80s and how genuine and kind and courteous everyone was, and compassionate and empathic about doing the right and doing the best for everyone. I love listening to, that was from 83, and I use it as my sleep material, so hopefully you didn't fall asleep, but just enjoy the peace and the tranquility it offers, because the 80s I was very young in 83, but very fortunate to grow up during that era. So yeah. So the first part was about defeat the healer, and how humanity actually will avoid their healing and stuff. So if you're a healer or you're entering the healing state, you think everyone wants to heal and everyone wants to get better. They actually don't, alright? So an interesting metaphor for this is there's a cool series out there called Mr. Robot, and I recently watched that, and it was pretty epic, and I recommended it to a few people I know and stuff, and basically out of that, and I'm not going to spoil it to you, he was very, very traumatized as a child. So traumatized, in fact, that he went schizophrenic, so he had multiple personalities, and what happened in that was one of his personalities that was a split from his core consciousness became the best hacker in the world, metaphor. And so what he wanted to do, that altered personality, he wanted to, there was a large conglomerate called E-Corp, and they called it Evil Corp in that show, because it was like controlled all the banking, and it did all this negative shit like pollution and stuff, and his father worked at one of the subsidiaries of that and got poisoned and died from cancer and stuff, right? So this alter wanted to destroy that company, right, and hack it, and they did, right? So, but then later on in the show, towards the end of the whole series, was it got revealed that he was massively traumatized by his father, and I won't get into the details. I'll leave it for you to find out. But yeah, he got massive healing, and the metaphor of that whole show is what people justify for unresolved healing, all right? What their lack of resolve for their healing justifies to basically become anarchists, all right? So it's a really powerful metaphor for the world at the moment. The majority of people avoid healing, all right? And they would rather destroy the world than heal, all right? So that's why me, in the contrarian view, I saw the hurt, avoid healing. Well, I'll freaking heal the shit out of me, all right? And that's where I say the metaphor of David is like, once you remove all the debris, the byproduct is who you are, who you're meant to be and stuff. So to me, being the healer now is a byproduct of that. And the pranic healing that I've mentioned is the guy that created it. His aim was to have 1 billion healers, literally. So there'll be a healer in every household that would do healing on all the family. So if there's going to be that volume of people and stuff, it's actually not rocket science. It has to be actually easy and elegant and truth. And if you have integrity, you don't lie, you value people proactively, like I say, value is a massive thing, and energy exchange is a massive component of it. Most people are not sovereign of the money system, despite what you think. And most people think that their crisis is a justification to get free healing. And it's not. It's like, it's not my fucking problem what you're going through, all right? But, most people would rather destroy themselves, like the death thing, all right, than heal or ask for help, all right? And that's where I can just see it, and I do stuff, and I've said I've done a lot of healing and stuff, but the issue I've the reason why I was going to talk about me and stuff is that anytime someone starts talking about their stuff, all right, my third eye, thank you, shout out to Silk Lightning. I've got another super psychic ally that I call Silk Lightning because she sounds like a siren. Her voice is amazing, and she's so sharp and fast and multidimensional, like epic, all right? And what she said my mechanics is, as soon as people tune into me and I am calculating a response, is via my third eye, the energy bodies that people overlay with mine. So as soon as I hear the coordinates of stuff and in their body, it might be like I'm clearing their third eye and stuff, but I pick up stuff in their shin and stuff like that. So or in their lymph glands, or they got entities or attachments or etheric implants and chips and stuff. And this whole series, what I wanted to do, and I was thinking originally to actually do part 3 of the etheric implants and blocks and stuff, but I felt offering this information of Dr. Robert Beck and all him as a teacher and the healing frequencies and Defeat the Healer would be a much more powerful tool for you if you get through this and you listen to it and you really observe yourself, and then you can see the patterns in society, because I'm all about pattern exploration and stuff and pattern recognition to use the data that you acquire and put it into your body. As I said in Multidimensional Madness part 9 and 10 about downloading the data and then acquiring that to engage the ignition of your perception, all right? So you think there's logic in people and their behavior. It's actually crazy and illogical and stuff. And that's where, if you grasp these concepts and say you're courageous to say invest in me in healing and stuff, how much of an edge you have over the rest of humanity. It's epic, all right? So yeah. So what I feel is very powerful is you actually hear the pattern of Robert talk about how he went to all these mystics and he found the common ingredient of the emanation of energy from them, all right? So I've talked about my meditation sort of being a massive component. I integrate meditation into my life, and I do walkabouts, and I heal by walking, and that's where I said buy good socks, because your feet are reflexology, and you invest in them, and you invest in decent shoes and stuff, you'll save yourself half the healing, because your body will get nourished, let alone your recovery and walking. That's why I walk so much. I listen to my Tiesto or meditation music and healing music, and I just get into a altered state. And so I sort of know instinctively how to get into them. I can trust my ability at will to enter what I want, right? Because I've done so much healing, I've gotten all the debris out of the way. And if I can't, I step back and I regroup, and that's what I've sort of done this week. We had 3 pretty epic solar flares in the first week of November, and it was interesting. The second one was an X class, which was really big. I think it was like released at 1.5 million kilometers per hour or something, so the solar flare hit Earth pretty quick. But then the third one was only an M class, but it went at 500 miles per second, so it was very slow for that, and we were baked, all right? And then it was interesting, the sunlight on our Monday, I said this to Captain Marvel, it was like white or blue. It was so bright, I couldn't see outside, like needed sunglasses. It was so clear and white, but the energies felt amazing and stuff. So it was really healing and stuff. And it was really nice to get over that week, because I had a lot of stuff go on and I was a bit scattered and stuff, and I was contemplating doing this video last week, but I'm not going to force anything, and if I'm not up for it, I'm not going to ever do it. Like, I give it away, like, it's up to me to do it. So if any of you out there went back to the books and went and revisited the other videos that I've done, well done, all right? That's a conscious explorer. You make the most of your time. And the other thing I mentioned was about Angela Miller. So I hope you've taken the time to listen to that, and you've actually looked in the details, whether it's on my Facebook or in the comments of the other of the YouTube video, because all her information is there, her YouTube channel and stuff. But if you look at the bottom, she does this group public curse and stuff removal, which is pretty epic, because what she does is when I was doing the healing on her, like I said, it was like I healed earth and stuff, and we cleared up a lot of the light and dark and hollow earth and got them organized. And then I asked her to just check if I was still getting in blocks, and she brought certain beings in, and also my ex, who was still harvesting my kundalini from 10 years ago. So she brings a soul in and basically tells them to not do it, and they were pissed off and that, but I got a lot more energy back and been integrating that, so I'm grateful for her. But yeah, she's awesome. We'll see what happens. There's a fair bit going on around her, but yeah, I'll be looking to do more with her, and we'll see where it goes. But to those of you that have valued me over the years and stuff like that, I hope you enjoyed hearing that audio. I gave it to only a very few because it was quite personal. It was not meant for public, but it was really epic. And yeah, like I said with me, I have to be very, very disciplined and not talk to people, because like I said, that overlay of it, that Silk Lightning, she told me, and I've had this issue for a long time, I drained myself so low doing all the stuff I've done over the years to actually milk me of energy to not have my talents bubble up, that it actually helped defend me. And then when I got all my energy back and I cut people out that were harvesting me massively, I got all boosted and my talents went off the charts. So I don't seek to interact with people anymore. I'm doing these videos and I'm doing sessions, because if I get smashed before a session, then that person that might need me for, in crisis, I won't be on my game, right? So I'm very, very thorough now. I'm not being a martyr like I've been in the past. I'm sitting back and being passive and waiting for you guys or the people out there to decide to be courageous and not defeat your own self, and go into your unknown and explore sessions and actually value the healer. Healers need to be valued massively with what's going on. And I've always proactively valued and done massive amount and overvalued whatever they've wanted for whatever healings that they've asked for in their price relative to me, because it only empowers the healing that comes through. If you overvalue instead of like try and screw over, like how much do you think that affects the healing that you get and the commitment you do? So healing is an incredibly brave thing to do, all right? You just got to see that most people, when there's fear and uncertainty, people go back to what they are most comfortable and familiar with. So there's the uncertainty and fear is massive at the moment. So you wonder why people go to the medical system and stuff. It's because people don't change when things are bad. People go back to the familiar, all right, and what they're comfortable with, all right, because the uncertainty, like puts the GPS onto that. So just realize that in yourself. Like, you don't understand why people do what they do. It's like humanity are basically illogical, right? So just see how amazing you are for being the conscious explorer and exploring that, all right? And just being here, like I said at the start, the incarnation war. And out of all that crap, you're one of the few hundred that are here, all right? Now, even listening to me with whatever's been said or done or whatever has gone on in the past, you've found me to be a match for you in this moment, all right? To hear this stuff and to be able to even contemplate these high-level philosophical and psychological healing components that are just ludicrous, all right? And I'm being a bit hard on saying it's ludicrous, but the illogicalness of things, like when I was currency trading, there's a rational exuberance, which Warren Buffett said, when people get greedy, they get more greedy, all right? Gandhi said there's enough in this world for everyone's need, there's never enough for anyone's greed. So you're seeing greed off the charts, the truth off the charts, and the lack of integrity and genuineness and stuff like that. It's a cost, all right, being empathic and thinking about the fellow man, you know what I mean? So you're seeing crazy stuff go on, and there's going to be a lot more craziness, all right? So I might round this out now. This is going to be quite long with all the components and stuff. What I might do is actually add a much more lengthy addition to this at the end as bonus material of like that 1993 interview with a lot of interesting components. But yeah, I do infinite potential healing and pranic healing, and I charge $100 US for the pranic healing and $200 for the infinite potential healing, and I use US dollars because I entangle with the Federal Reserve and stuff, because I'm like a virus of the system, alright? So yeah, I hope you consider all this, observe yourself, and see how amazing you are to be here. Be tough on yourself though, be thorough. Like, it's okay to not be okay with what's going on because it's crazy, but my attitude is, if I see shit out there that I don't like and it affects me, then I go and get on a healing table, alright? Because I heal me, and then I change my perception, because what's going on now is the collective are actually co-creating a lot. So you're talking about bullshit related to the environment and stuff. That's trying to get us to co-create the outcome that they want and stuff like that. And I won't get into that much, but I hope you gain something from this, and I hope you continue and be more thorough. And with everything going on, it's only activating and hiding your power. And if you're angry and pissed off about what's going on in the world, transmute that into your passion and motivation and wanting to know more, and engaging the fire within to activate the power maybe dormant in you, because we all have it. We all galactic last resort, Mimsies, diamonds, Frodos, alright? So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing all you do. Thank you for enduring all the shit. Stay strong. And just, like I said at the start of Incarnation War Part 5, the norm in the universe is actually awareness. So maybe the lack of awareness we have is the gift, but gaining awareness in the unawareness is one of the ultimate soul achievements. So my attitude is healing and knowing about these sort of concepts, and maybe revisit the first 2 releases of this series, see what you learn from them and embody it. And maybe Earth has got some surprises for you, alright? So enjoy. Lots of love. Andre out.
So I guess you know that about 3 months ago, Explorer magazine published an article entitled Total Cancer Emissions Through Blood Electrification Combined with Silver Colloid. And this article, this 2 pages, is reprinted in its entirety in the paper that you should be taking home with you, because you might need this in your medicine cabinets when a lot of these man-made viruses are going to be unleashed by the New World Order. And I guess you have been privileged to hear Leonard Horowitz at this very fore. This man is doing magnificent work. His book, The Emerging Viruses, etc., I met him and had my first talk with him down at the National Health Federation this weekend. He's a gentleman and a scholar, and he is right.
The very next verse in the Bible is the light at the end of the tunnel, light at the end of this darkness. It's about singing a new song. It's about 144,000 humble servants of the Creator coming together in the end times to sing a new song. 1 + 4 + 4 is 9. That's completion. That's like the fat lady sings in the spiritual domain. And I didn't realize this, but when we published these codes and we made them known, and the musicians around the world, Jonathan Goldman, Al Harris, Kunkel, Dan Kunkel, numerous other people started to spread this technology, this new wisdom, that the electromagnetics of the power of the Creator's tones, and we as humble servants, the co-creators, created in the image, empowered with the labiatum, The sixth note of the scale is La, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Labiatum, the lips, the creative instruments. We're singing and playing the Creator's frequencies, connecting us completely to the universal energies. I didn't realize the wonder and the empowerment of that. I believe that what this is it's a doorway, it's a key. It's a key to hasten what has already been hastened, the spiritual renaissance. And the power of that makes anything else pale by comparison. That I used to say years ago when I did the book, Emerging Viruses, AIDS, and Ebola, I used to tell people, you know, my grandfather died by choice after smoking for about 75 years. And the lesson from that was, he was as a very spiritually pious man, if you become like my grandfather, focused on service and love and giving thanks consistently to our great Creator, there won't be a Rockefeller, a Rothschild, or a Kissinger who will terminate you before your time. But what I didn't realize was that the blessing of the power was going out and uplifting us like, and this is my opinion, what the rapture really is. That we are being enraptured. We're being uplifted spiritually. That the book, interestingly enough, and I'm totally humbled, it is not me. I almost got left back in third grade. So that I'm telling you the truth. I've simply been a humble servant, and if I don't listen, just like you, if I don't listen to the direction that I'm getting, I get whacked. Okay? So there's nothing special about me. But when I read the book of Revelation 3:6, and it talks about the angel from Philadelphia and the spirit of the angel from Philadelphia opening a doorway, a portal that no man can close. I'm from Philadelphia. And this information has opened up, in my humble opinion, a portal that is the portal, the premier portal to the cosmic consciousness. That if we simply, with love and thanks, it's real easy, continue to put out these frequencies and these sounds, that the spiritual renaissance will literally solve all the earth's problems. I say that because of this metaphor. This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else, particularly evil. That you can go into a pitch black room full of evil, full of darkness, and light a little candle, and instantly that darkness flees. But you can't do the opposite. You can't go into a well-lit room full of truth and wisdom and righteousness and joy and health and harmony with the universal power. And you can't take any amount of darkness and go into that well-lit room and have any effect whatsoever. That is the metaphor which I frequently think of when I think that I'm not empowered. It is the greatest lesson for me, and I think for everybody else, to know that we're on the winning side and that we win in the end.
Keep fighting, keep spreading awareness, refusing to comply. We're getting fined and arrested for simply wanting to be free, and we will keep singing. You can stick your new world order up your ass. You can stick your new world order up your ass. You can stick your new world order where the sun don't shine but ought to. Stick your new world order up your ass. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 90. Together we are mighty. We are 99%. The Queen will be arrested in a dressing gown. Queen will be arrested in a dressing gown. The Queen will be arrested in a, cause she is such a sinner. She'll be arrested in a dressing gown. You can stick your corporation up your arse. You can stick your corporation up your arse. You can stick your corporation. We're a free and sovereign nation. Stick your corporation up your arse. Singing we are the 99%. Come on! Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. You can stick your... Hang on, it's cool now. We're all good. And another one. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. There'll be blue skies when the chemtrails and their evil plan fails. Blue skies when the chemtrails are all gone. You can stick your coronavirus up your ass. You can stick your coronavirus up your ass. You can stick your coronavirus. They're all known and proven liars. Stick your coronavirus up your ass. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. You can stick your poison vaccines up your ass. You can stick your poison vaccines up your ass. You can stick your poison vaccines, cause they cause all the disease. Stick your poison vaccines up your ass. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. You can stick your fracking drilling up your ass. You can stick your TV programs up your ass. You can stick your GMO foods. We ain't gonna go school. Stick the Georgia guy songs up your ass. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 99%. Singing we are 90. Together we are mighty. We are 99%. Oh, I'd rather be a human than a slave. Oh, I'd rather be a human than a slave. Oh, I'd rather be a human. And don't you know that you can rather be a human than a slave? Singing we are the 99%. Come on! Singing we are the 99%. Singing we are the 90. Together we are mighty. We are the 99%. How's it go? You can stick your new world order up your ass. You can stick your new world order up your ass. You can stick your new world order where the sun don't shine but ought to. Stick your new world order up your ass. Thank you very much. Let's keep this going. We keep it going. We keep growing. That's how we win. Thank you. Let's hear it for Daphne.
So everything I've done, like the Galactic Special Forces, all that, it's in the algorithm of my Akashic record and my frequency and my DNA and all that sort of stuff. So it's there. So it's like I'm a codex of codes and stuff. So whatever code the individual needs, they get, sort of thing. Whatever's the right time of their journey and stuff in their consciousness Tetris. And this information, it's funny, it's from my perspective, I'm giving you the answers at the end of the like say math book and stuff, and I don't know if schools use books anymore, but they used to give us textbooks with the answers in the end, and you weren't meant to cheat. But because I'm giving you the answers on many things, it probably won't make sense because you don't have the context, because to understand the context you do have to go through that consciousness Tetris, and I might be overlaying an image of a competition of Tetris, so you get like, unless you get the right blocks for the lower levels, you're not going to comprehend this sort of stuff, and that's all cool. Trust me, the discovery process is awesome here, alright? It's one of the gifts we have in this unawareness realm, and that. So I love that journey of discovery. It's such a gift to get new realizations, and you get that level clear, and then you see things from a totally different perspective, and I love that shift that you get, especially when you're wrong, alright?
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.